Hi class. So in this lecture I want to talk a little bit about what we did in our first class, our mind mapping activity. And I also want to get into this article summary assignment. So writing assignment number 1 is the article summary. So you have to find 3 articles and write a brief paragraph for each one summarizing what that article was about. And then I'll also be posting another video for today's class where I go into, sort of how to find an article using the U of R library database and also using Google Scholar. So those are two different avenues that you can use to find journal articles. But let me just talk about the mind mapping activity for a moment. I've been seeing, some of you have sent me your mind maps, and I've been really impressed by the way you sort of were able to expand these broad topics and find different interesting ways to branch off and think of how the different sort of diverse subtopics that are related to our issues. And there are a lot of really good research topics out there that people have brought up in their mind maps. So I want you to look at your mind map and focus in on the specific branch or branches at this point that really spark your interest, because those are going to be the sort of subtopics or angle that I want you to maybe explore more when we start actually trying to find research articles, and then eventually when you're going to expand those research articles into a full research paper. So I want you to kind of find an angle or a specific sort of subtopic related to the big topic that you picked, but one of those branches is going to sort of give you a more sort of sophisticated or nuanced reading of that larger issue. And that's what researchers do, right? They try to find a sort of unique angle to a topic that's been written about, a million times. What new can we say about it, or what angle can we sort of look at this research topic? How can we approach this in a new or original way? And so when you're starting to do your Google searches or your library database searches or your Google Scholar searches for your topic, you'll have to write in your research term. So whatever it is, if it was, obesity or adolescent pregnancy, or I saw so many good ones. So, there were lots. Diabetes and spina bifida and all the ones that you might have your specific topic, but then you're going to have to look at and something else. So you want to narrow that topic down. So you want to say maybe diabetes and treatment options, or look at the branches of your mind map and narrow that down. So what's the secondary issue or angle that you're going to look at that topic, sort of research about that topic. So that's kind of what the mind map is about. It's getting you to sort of look at the branches or the different aspects related to a bigger issue. And that's where we want you to sort of start focusing in your research with a more narrow scope, rather than just a big overview that I could read, on any website. So you want to be your research to be a little bit more narrow and focused in. Okay, so yeah, that's the mind mapping activity. I thought it was really interesting, and I encourage anybody who hasn't posted or hasn't done the activity yet to do it, because it is something that you can also apply to your other classes. So whenever you're asked to do a research project, it's always helpful to do a little brainstorming or mind mapping. And then I also want to talk about our writing assignment number 1. So let's get to that, and I'll introduce you to this idea of what journal articles are, and what is it, and how do we write a summary or an article summary of our research. So that's sort of our first step here. So what is an article summary, and how do I write an article summary? So I'm assuming none of you have written an article summary before, and I'm also assuming that maybe you've never even read an article, an academic journal article before. So for those of you who maybe have a little bit more, um, secondary education uh, or post-secondary education, this may be review for you. But again, a lot of us, when you're starting out university or post-secondary, you're not familiar with the concept of journal articles. So this is sort of the basics of a research component for academics, is finding what other academics, scientists, experts have written about that topic, and reading a sort of strong foundation of what other people have written about this topic, and then being able to concisely sort of bring those ideas together in a research paper, while also sort of situating our own viewpoint within this larger discourse around that research topic. So we'll sort of start from the basics. So what is a article? So in a very basic definition, a journal article is basically just an essay that's been published, and it's written by an academic researcher. It could be written by a team of academic researchers. So there's, in universities, there's always collaborative research projects where multiple people sort of contribute to a study, and then they publish their research findings at the end of that study, and then other researchers will read what they've written and use that data to inform their own research projects. And it's sort of, again, a sharing of information through the publishing of one's research. So yeah, journal articles, they're actually like magazines for academics, basically. So when you're an academic, you'll write an essay or do a study, and then you'll send it off to an academic journal to get published. And it's not an immediate process, so it's a quite long drawn process because it has to go through peer review. And so a peer review just means there's a sort of board of other experts on that topic who look through your essay or your article and make sure that they sort of do fact checking and make sure all of the, there's sort of a level of integrity to your study. And it's just basically to sort of check the accuracy and the integrity of your article and make sure everything checks out and is accurate. So it has a high standard for accuracy, unlike Wikipedia page, which can be edited by anybody, and the information can be incorrect. Journal articles are really sort of scrutinizing the information that's published, and that's where you sort of know you can get quality information through sort of journal articles, because there's such a high standard amongst the community of researchers to make sure that that information is accurate. And then, it takes a long process to go through the peer reviews, and they'll might send back, you have to correct this or that. And so there's lots of editing, and then eventually your essay will be published and it becomes an article. And then other researchers will read that and cite you in their papers as an expert. So it's quite of a long drawn process, but that's a lot of what we do as academics. I sent off an essay maybe a year ago to be part of a book, and then a year later they're like, okay, you got to do these edits, and you got to write an abstract, and you have to do all these steps, and then eventually it'll be published in a book or journal. So yeah, it's kind of a tedious thing, but again, you go through all these steps in order to make sure that the final product is up to a certain scholarly standard. Yeah, so that's where every professor that you've had, or scientific teams, they're publishing their findings in these journals. So that's where we as students learn, or that's where we can access the best information, is from journal articles. or published books. The internet is also good for researching, but you have to make sure that your sources are quality sources, reliable sources, um, that it's not just information that, you know, some blogger has. It could be full of conspiracy theories or whatever it is, some twisted, um, you know, version of events. So you want to just make sure that when you're citing research for a research paper, that it's coming from the best possible sources. So that's why we want to encourage you to use journals, especially peer-reviewed journals, because we know they're coming from quality. Sort of the standard of quality is really high. So yeah, the whole point of articles is to help educate and inform the audience. And so it's largely written for an academic audience. And in that regard, they can be difficult to read. A lot of times there's a lot of sort of scientific jargon in journal articles, or it's like an academic language that is not really accessible to a lot of people. And it takes a while to get used to that sort of style of writing, and also to sort of learn how to emulate that as a student. And I don't expect you to sort of understand everything that you read in the journal articles. It's more about sort of finding the main points or arguments, right? So you don't have to understand every single thing, like every, longitudinal study, da 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 da. Like these are sort of jargony words, but you have to sort of understand what the point or purpose of that article was. What did the authors intend for you, or intend for their study to show? And yeah, sort of just to get the basics of what that article is about. So that's kind of, sometimes you have to read an article more than once because it is sort of difficult to understand. And I always read with a marker or a pen nearby, so I can sort of explain in my own words what I think they're trying to say. Because I just find that, if I highlight topic sentences, or if I highlight key ideas or bolded words, it'll help me sort of make sense of what that article is saying. So that's a little tip too. So read also with like a marker, a highlighter, or a pen in your hand, and maybe reread more than once. And then articles they exist in both print and online. We're lucky now that most journal articles are accessible online, so you don't actually have to go to the library and find the hard copy and then photocopy the article and then read the article. You can find and download journal articles online, and it's all very convenient and much easier now than it used to be. And then to find an article, you do have to go through academic libraries like the U of R or Sask Polytechnic Library to find them, because there are sort of many journal articles. If you search just through Google, you'll be blocked at a certain point and it won't let you access it. So there's usually a pay, they make you pay basically to see the article. So there is this kind of, protection of the academic research, and it is, again, guarded sort of by academic institutions. So you do have to sort of pay or be a student or a professor in order to gain access to that information. So yeah, it's best practice, again, to go through, use the university library or use Sask Poly's library in order to gain access to the journal articles, rather than just searching on a normal Google search for that article, because you probably will hit a paywall and you won't be able to access the full article. So just to summarize, an article is basically just an essay that has been published and it's been written by an academic or academic team. So eventually you might become, further in your career, academic career, you might have an essay that you've written that's good enough to be published in a journal, or maybe you're part of a research group or collaborative research team that does research and eventually contributes to an essay that you'll eventually go and get published in a journal article. So that's kind of the goal that we want you to sort of strive for. And we don't expect you to, write at the same level as the articles that we are getting you to read, but that's sort of the style of writing that as academics we sort of strive to achieve ourselves. So it's good to sort of familiarize yourselves with academic writing by reading a lot of articles. And that's the best way I can say about preparing, for how to write in a university level, is to sort of start reading university level writing. And that's journal articles and book chapters and published works like that, rather than just information on the internet. So you want to sort of start filtering, finding quality sources when you're going to do your research. Okay, so our next question is, what is an article summary? So that's your assignment, is to find 3 different articles about whatever research topic that you decide on. And then, so it's all 3 articles are going to be basically about the same subject, or slightly, on the same branch, but maybe they bring up different points or something like that. They're going to be slightly different, obviously, but all related in some way to your research topic. And so you're going to have 3 summaries, 1 for each article, and it's going to be a short paragraph. So the point of an article summary is to summarize. So the article itself might be 10 pages long. Your summary is going to be 1 paragraph long. So you need to sort of decide how to condense that information into a really short, concise explanation of what that article was about. So you want to really focus in on the main points of the article. You can't talk about everything, so you really have to sort of pick and choose what you say in your brief summary. And there's ways that you can do that. Sort of you're kind of condensing information. So you want to really get the main argument or main idea of that article. So it's important to sort of find the purpose of why that article was written and include that in your summary. And then you want to talk about the main ideas. So what are the main points that this author or authors made in their article, and what were their main findings or conclusions about that topic. And that's basically all you can do in your summary because it's so short. So you're not going to get into the details of, the procedures of how they went about their study, or, all of the little nitty-gritty facts and figures that are included in the article. You might use that information more in your research paper, but for an article summary, you really want to just condense down to just the main idea or ideas of that article. And it's really about, again, summing up in a really, 5 sentences what's been said in 10 pages or 5 pages. So articles can be varying lengths. Some are, 1 or 2 pages, some are 25 pages. So it really depends on the scope of that study, or what they're writing about. So you'll find a large variation in terms of length of articles, but your summary has to be short and to the point. So you really have to sort of figure out the main idea of that article and condense that down to a short paragraph. The other thing is the language that you use in your summary. It should be more, it should be clear and easy to understand. It shouldn't be full of the jargon used in the article. So even, somebody who's not an expert in neuroscience or whatever field it is that you're looking at should be able to understand what that article was about based on your short summary. So I don't really have a science background, so I do, struggle with some of the, larger scientific concepts and ideas. I don't have a medical background. So it is nice when I sort of get, a clear explanation of, um, ideas in an article summary, or in the abstract for the article. You'll notice, we'll talk about this more, but there's usually an abstract at the beginning of an article that kind of sums up what it's about. And so that's kind of what I want you to do with your summary, is to condense that information down in a really short, um, clearly written, easy to understand paragraph telling me what that article was about and maybe how it relates to your research topic. So it could also explain the connection or how you're going to use it in your research paper. Okay, so I also want to briefly touch on how do I write an article summary, and we'll talk more about this in Thursday's class, but for now I just want you to sort of start thinking about an article summary as identifying the main idea or topic of that article. Sometimes it's called the thesis statement, but you might not have a single thesis statement in the article, or it might not be just 1 to 2 sentences as we're used to in our essay writing. But you want to find the main idea or purpose of that article, and that's the information that you should include in your article summary. So what was this article about? What are the main idea or ideas that the author or authors are trying to convey? And some strategies that will help you sort of gather that information. You can look at the title. Obviously, that's the first thing that grabs your attention when you're looking at a list of articles in a database. So when you look up your topic, there'll be, lists of 10, 20, 30 different articles, and your first impression is the title. So that'll give you the first indication of whether or not it's going to relate to your topic. So what is that article about? You should be able to read the title of the article and get a clear sense of what that paper is going to be about, which is a good tip for your own writing. So make sure you add a title to your essay that tells me exactly what that paper is going to be about. So you can also identify where that article was published. So lots of times the journal name will also give you a hint at who the intended audience is. So if it's an article that's published in Nursing Quarterly, you can assume the intended audience is for professional nurses or nursing students. So it really depends. You can look at that title of that journal article, and then it'll give you another hint of like who is this person writing for, and that's the intended audience of that article. You could also look at topic sentences. So go through the article, and I would have, again, like I said, use a highlighter pen. Look for any bolded words, or look for topic sentences. So that's the first sentence of a paragraph, is usually called the topic sentence, and it tells what that paragraph is about. So this is something that I'm also going to be looking for in your own writing. So when you're writing your research paper, I'll look at, does this person have a strong topic sentence for their paragraph? Does the rest of the paragraph relate back to the topic sentence? So when you're reading, you can look for the topic sentence and then try in your own words to sort of restate that information in your own words. So in your margin of that article, you can sort of write little notes or keywords and try restating it in your own words as well, so you don't end up plagiarizing in your summary. You could also focus on the abstract. So I mentioned that most articles have what is called an abstract, and that's kind of the article summary that the authors have written. And I don't want you to copy and paste that. So you have to sort of reword the information, but it is a good idea to sort of read the article abstract and get a sense of how the authors are introducing this topic. to their audience and explaining it in a sort of simple way. So I would definitely read article abstracts as a way to sort of get a sense of how to clearly explain what the article is about in a sort of succinct, short way. And also try to, again, identify the main purpose of the study and its main findings. So really focus in on those aspects while reading. Again, you're not going to have time to talk about all the methods and procedures that the study went through, or that the study entails and that the researchers went through. So you really want to kind of pinpoint the main arguments or main findings, research findings of that paper. So I mentioned focus more on the abstract, the introduction, the discussion, and the conclusion. So there's usually headings in an essay or journal article. And that's another tip that you're going to be able to use in your own research paper. Use headings as a way to organize the information that's included in your research paper. So when we talk about APA style, a lot of people focus in on headings, and that's just, you know, a way to organize information and make sure that everything in that section relates back to that heading. So it's really quite a useful technique to structure or organize your paper and your thoughts on an issue. But again, in a lot of scientific research papers, there is a large section where they just talk about what they did in the study, how they, you know, interviewed 237 so-and-so people to get this and that. So you can condense all that information down and not necessarily have to include all that data into your article summary. And focus more just on the findings of their research. So what do they say in their conclusion and their discussion sections of the paper? Okay, so here's an example of an article summary, and you can see it's pretty. This one's actually kind of long even. It could be shorter, but again, this is sort of the maximum size you'd want your article summary to be. And it starts off, you know, explaining what this article was about. So the authors in the study assessed the relationship between job performance in first-level managers, as rated by the supervisors, and their effective commitment, continuous commitment, and job satisfaction. So that's basically the purpose of the study, is in that first sentence. You can include the author's names and the title of the article. So that's what I would probably do if I was writing. I'd say, you know, in the title of the article, in this case, at the bottom, you can see it's called Organizational Commitment and Job Performance. It's the nature of the commitment that counts. That's the name of the title of the article. And then it's in Journal of Applied Psychology. So that's the name of the journal that this article was published in. And the authors here are J.P. Meyer, S.V. Pononen, I.R. Gelatli, and R.D. Goffin, and D.N. Jackson. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 authors for this one article. So you'll find that is really common in sort of scientific research articles, that there's usually a team of researchers who are publishing an article together. And so this is how you use APA style. You list by last name and initials. So here, last name, initials, and that's one person. And then the next person, last name, initials, and so on. And then you use the and symbol before your last one. You include the year that the article was published, the title of the article, and it's not in italics, and there's no quotation marks around it. So organizational commitment and job performance, it's the nature of the commitment that counts. That's your title. And then Journal of Applied Psychology is the journal title. So that's the name of the journal that it's been published in. 74, there's usually an issue, a volume number or an issue number that's included in the journal. So you would include volume and issue if available, and then the page range. So this article was 4 pages in length, and the pages were on pages 152 to 156 in the journal. And yeah, so in your article summary, you're basically just summing up the main points. Here they've highlighted key terms. So effective commitment, continuous commitment, and job satisfaction were the 3 key terms introduced in this article. And so they're making sure that those 3 concepts, oops, here, are clearly stated in their article summary. They go on to explain those 3 aspects. So they said effective commitment is defined as an emotional attachment to the organization. And then there, you'll notice here, they've included a citation. So they're summing up the information from the article and citing the authors here. So Meyer, Pononen, Gellatley, Goffin, and Jackson, 1989. So they've just used paraphrase here, so they're summing it up in their own words, and then they're citing the authors after their citation. So you could do that as well. Make sure you're properly citing information when you're using your own words to describe a concept or idea that you found in the paper, in the article. And then they say, alternatively, continuous commitment is based on costs that employees associate with leaving the organization, and job performance was assessed according to 3 dimensions. 1, composite performance according to the average on 6 specific activities. 2, overall performance based on subjective rating given by the immediate supervisor. And 3, promotability. So yeah, those were the 3 dimensions. So he's basically condensing probably what was, 2 to 3 pages in the paper, their research findings, into 1 sentence here. So those are the 3 main ideas: composite performance, overall performance, and promotability were the 3 ideas. So again, it's important to look through your article, find the key terms or headings that are used by the article, or any bold words. And then the participants were 23 district managers and 65 unit managers from a large food service organization. So he's basically just telling you what the study, who was participating in the study. The researchers found that effective commitment was positively related to overall performance and promotability. So that's kind of the major research finding. The correlation between continuous commitment and all 3 performance dimensions were negative and significant. What I learned from this article and these findings is that supervisor ratings of performance and promotability increase as the employee's effective commitment increases. On the other hand, supervisor ratings of performance and promotability decrease as continuous commitments increases. So yeah, they sort of summarize in their last sentence what they learned, or what you learned from that article. So you can do the same, follow a kind of similar layout when you're doing your article summary. So start by telling, your first sentence can say what this article is about, the purpose of it, then include the major findings and what the main conclusions of the article are, and then end your article summary by sort of just saying what you learned, or the main point that you got out of reading this article. So what was the major finding that you took away from it? And follow APA style in all of your citations and in your reference. Okay, so for Thursday's class, I will go over a couple more strategies that you can use for quoting and paraphrasing properly in your article summary. So this is, kind of an important part. So how do you take information from the article and use your own words in order to summarize or paraphrase what the authors have been saying? So you want to avoid plagiarism by avoiding taking words phrases or sentence structure directly from the article, the authors, and using it in your article summary. So you want to avoid that, and you want to use your own words to express the same ideas but in a new way. So we'll practice that on Thursday. So I want you to find an article or multiple articles if you're able to do that about your research topic, and have at least one available to reference for Thursday's class so you can look at it and we can sort of walk through what an article looks like, and I can help you sort of with strategies to quote and paraphrase from it.